The M4 Sherman was the tank that won the war. It wasn't the biggest, the strongest, or even the best. But when it rolled into Europe, the war began to turn. What most people don't know is that America didn't start here. Before the Sherman came years of trial, failure, and a race against time to catch up with Germany's armor. This is the story of how the United States went from outdated tin cans to the steel fist that crushed the Axis. Before the Sherman came the M2 Light, America's first small step into modern armored warfare. It carried a 37mm cannon, enough to handle infantry, but too weak for serious armor. It could move quickly across open ground at 35 miles an hour, but in real combat, speed wasn't enough when even rifle fire could break through its thin armor. A crew of 4 worked inside a cramped steel shell that offered little protection, and only a few hundred ever rolled off the line before it was clear the design wouldn't last. Still, the M2 Light gave US crews their first real experience in tanks, lessons that would shape everything that followed. From the lessons of the M2 came the M3 Stuart, the first American tank to see real combat in World War II. It carried the same 37mm gun, but with thicker armor and a stronger engine that could push it to about 36 miles an hour. A crew of 4 worked inside a tight space that was loud, hot, and constantly in motion. It wasn't meant to go toe-to-toe with German armor, but for scouting and fast attacks, it was dependable and quick. The British crews who drove it in North Africa called it honey for how smooth it handled, and that reputation stuck. Later, the improved M5 version fixed its biggest flaws, adding better power and reliability. Together, these two models gave US tankers confidence, proof that American armor could keep up with the fight. By 1944, the Stuart's speed could no longer make up for its weak gun and armor. The Army needed a light tank that could fight, not just scout. The answer was the M24 Chaffee, armed with a 75mm cannon that finally gave a light tank real firepower. Its armor was modest, only about 1.5 inches thick at most, but its new suspension made it smooth and steady over rough ground. It could reach 35 miles an hour and carried a 5-man crew who finally had room to work. Only a few thousand were built before the war's end, yet the Chaffee was fast, reliable, and accurate, a glimpse of the modern light tanks to come. The M2 Medium was the bridge between experiments and real battlefield armor. It carried a 37mm gun, supported by multiple machine guns, and moved at about 25 miles an hour. Its armor was barely 1 inch thick in places, and a crew of 6 worked inside a tall, awkward hull. Fewer than 100 were ever built, but the lessons it taught, wide tracks, sloped armor, better layouts, became the blueprint for America's next generation of tanks. Out of the M2's design came the M3, called the Lee by Americans and the Grant by the British. It was an odd-looking machine, tall and heavy, with a 75mm gun fixed in its hull and a smaller 37mm gun mounted in the turret above. Its armor was up to 2 inches thick, and a crew of 7 worked to keep both guns firing. It could reach about 26 miles an hour, but its height made it an easy target. In North Africa, though, it arrived just in time. Against early German armor, the M3's firepower gave Allied forces a fighting chance. It wasn't elegant, but it was effective. The stopgap that held the line until something better was ready. The tank that changed everything was the M4 Sherman. It carried a 75mm gun, later upgraded to a 76 or even a 105mm howitzer, and armor up to 3 inches thick. It wasn't the heaviest tank on the battlefield, but it struck the perfect balance of speed, power, and reliability. At about 30 miles an hour, it could move with infantry, cross rough terrain, and keep fighting, even after taking hits that would stop most others. A 5-man crew operated it efficiently, and mechanics could repair one in hours instead of days. Nearly 50,000 were built, more than every German tank combined, and they fought everywhere, from the sands of North Africa to the forests of Europe and the islands of the Pacific. The Germans mocked it as a Ronson, claiming it lit up fast, but the truth was different. The Sherman-S design gave crews the best chance to survive a hit and get back into battle. It wasn't invincible, but it was unstoppable. Simple to build, easy to maintain, and good enough to win, the M4 Sherman became the face of Allied armor, the tank that rolled through Europe and helped end the war. As the Sherman became the backbone of US armor, another machine took on a different role, the M10 Wolverine. Built on a Sherman chassis, it traded heavy armor for an open turret and a powerful 3-inch gun. Its armor ranged from just 1 to 2 inches thick, light enough to keep its speed near 30 miles an hour. A crew of 5 worked under an open sky, exposed but deadly from ambush. Around 6,000 were built, and they made their mark in Italy, Normandy, and beyond. The Wolverine wasn't designed to take hits. It was designed to hit first and vanish before the enemy could return fire. The M18 Hellcat took the Wolverine's idea and pushed it to the extreme. It was built for one purpose, speed. With a 76mm gun and paper-thin armor barely an inch thick, it relied on movement instead of protection. On roads, it could reach 55 miles an hour, faster than any other armored vehicle of the war. A crew of 5 operated it, often with the wind whipping through its open turret as they raced into position. Just over 2,000 were built, but the Hellcat proved that sometimes speed could be its own kind of armor: strike first, disappear, and live to fight again. By late 1944, American crews needed something with real stopping power. The answer was the M36 Jackson, a tank destroyer built on the same chassis as the M10, but armed with a massive 90mm gun. That cannon could punch through the front armor of a Tiger tank, giving US forces a weapon that could finally go toe-to-toe with Germany's best. Its armor was still light, only up to 2 inches thick, but the trade-off kept its speed near 26 miles an hour. A crew of 5 manned it, exposed under the open turret, but confident in the gun that could turn the tide of a fight. Around 2,000 were built, and they gave American tankers something they hadn't had before: the power to strike back. The final step in America's wartime tank evolution was the M26 Pershing. Low, wide, and armed with the same 90mm gun as the Jackson, it finally gave US crews a tank built to fight German heavy armor head-on. Its armor was thick, up to 4 inches in places, and it could reach 25 miles an hour, trading some speed for real protection. A 5-man crew operated it comfortably compared to earlier designs, and just over 1,000 rolled out before the war's end. In 1945, one Pershing faced a Tiger on the streets of Cologne and won. It arrived too late to shape the war, but it marked the beginning of modern American armor, where firepower, protection, and mobility finally met in balance. In just a few years, America went from improvised designs to tanks that could stand with the best in the world. But as the Pershing rolled into Germany, a new kind of war was already waiting, one where steel and armor would face something far more